Welcome everyone to another long list of urban legends which you probably haven't heard before. Just like the last video, there's going to be a bunch of ones that are pretty unknown and obscure, so let me know if you guys have heard these before or if it's your first time. And once again, if you guys like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe since it helps the channel out and I'll know what you guys like to see. Anyways, let's get straight into video now with the first entry. Vampire of Dillsboro. The legend of the vampires of Dillsboro originates from the small town of Dillsboro, North Carolina, which was known as New Webster in the late 18th century. This tale begins in the spring of 1788 when Dr. Alford and his family arrived in the isolated community. They purchased land near a nearby river and built a fine home. Dr. Alford, who was rumored to have royal lineage, set up a home office and apothecary, drawing patients from miles around. Initially, Dr. Alford was well received by the community. However, suspicions arose when two men treated by him for gout suddenly died under mysterious circumstances. The deaths of these well-liked and productive community members caused social unrest, but the local minister managed to calm the situation by reminding everyone that death can come unexpectedly and is often the will of God. Life returned normal until the fall of the year, when the minister's wife witnessed a dark figure hovering above their young daughter's bed. The child, who had initially been healthy, was then found dead with 2 puncture wounds on her neck and a small amount of blood on her pillow. This incident was followed by reports of a large, bat-like creature flying around at night. Fear then started spreading around the town, leading families to close their doors and windows and huddle together to protect their children. The situation escalated further when a young boy came to town and started shouting and reporting that something was attacking his parents and sisters at their home on a hill. When a group of men arrived, they found the family dead with puncture wounds on their necks. Despite thorough searches of the surrounding hills and valleys, nothing unusual was ever discovered. By February 1789, residents had begun to relax, though they continued to keep their children close and avoid going out alone after dark. Their sense of security was shattered though one evening when screams were heard from a house halfway up the hill. Neighbors arriving at the scene saw a black form in human shape disappear into the Alford home. Inside the house, they found a young couple dead with strange bite marks on their throats. A vigilante group then quickly formed and the men went to the Alford house. They demanded entry, but Dr. Alford refused. Some members of the group stood guard while others fetched reinforcements. By morning, a large gathering of townsmen forced their way inside. They found the beds in the upstairs chambers freshly made but unoccupied. After searching the downstairs, including the doctor's office and apothecary, they broke down a heavy locked door leading to the cellar. There, they discovered 3 coffins. In one lay Mrs. Alford, dressed in a black shroud-like garment. She was alive and hissing as she was pulled from the coffin. The couple's 15-year-old son was nowhere to be found though. Outside, the leader of the vigilantes addressed the gathered crowd, declaring the Alfords to be vile, unnatural creatures that fed on the blood of the living. Dr. and Mrs. Alford were then hanged, their corpse placed inside the house, which was then set on fire. The attacks and murders ceased after this event. However, questions still remain about whether the Alfords were truly vampires. Some speculate that the legend may have been influenced by reports of vampire attacks in Rhode Island, which was happening around the same time. These New England cases involve so-called wasting deaths without puncture marks or blood drinking, which differed from the Dillsboro incidents. And the addition of a huge bat-like creature to the story suggests some embellishments over time. Without concrete evidence though or contemporary accounts, it's impossible to determine the truth of what happened in Dillsboro or the fate of Dr. Alford's son, so yeah, a lot of it's still up to legend. La Planchada. The legend of La Planchada, translating to the Iron Lady, is a story that comes from Mexican folklore, especially prevalent in the medical community. The tale is often associated with Hospital Juarez in Mexico City, where the ghost of a nurse named Eulalia, who is known for a perfectly ironed white uniform, is said to roam the corridors, caring for the sick when they're most in need. Eulalia was known for her exceptional skills as a nurse and her unparalleled dedication to her parents. She maintained an impeccable appearance with her nurse's uniform always neatly pressed. Her reputation at the hospital was stellar too, as she was both respected and even really admired by her colleagues for her professionalism and empathy towards her patients. However, Eulalia's life took a tragic turn with the arrival of a new doctor at the hospital, being a young, charismatic man who quickly caught the eye of many within the staff. Unlike her usual indifference to personal relationships though, Eulalia found herself drawn to this new doctor, and it wasn't long before they started seeing each other outside of their professional interactions. Their relationship ended up being pretty deep, leading to an engagement that was widely circulated among their peers. The turning point in Eulalia's story though came when her fiancé left for a medical seminar, promising to return soon. As days turned into weeks though with no word from him, Eulalia grew increasingly anxious, with her worry compounded by the lack of communication from his end. Her worst fears were confirmed though when news reached out that the doctor had met someone else at the seminar and married her, abandoning Eulalia without a prior warning. Devastated by the betrayal, Eulalia's mental and emotional health began to deteriorate rapidly. Her work suffered since she became distracted and became sort of a shadow of her former self. This profound sadness affected her ability to care for her patients, leading to a tragic incident where one of her patients actually died due to her negligence. Overcome with guilt and unable to cope with the magnitude of her professional failure, Eulalia fell gravely ill and soon passed away in the very hospital where she had dedicated her life to helping others. And after a strange death, strange occurrences began to be reported at the hospital. Patients and staff claimed to have seen the figure of a nurse dressed in an ironed uniform walking the hallways at night. This figure was dubbed La Planchada, or the Iron Lady, in reference to her neatly attire. According to reports, this ghostly nurse wasn't just a passive presence, but actively participated in patient care. On numerous occasions, patients who had been neglected or were in critical condition somehow recovered miraculously, and they often attributed their improving health to the care of a kind nurse whom no one else had seen but them. Some say that Eulalia's spirit continues to roam the hospital as a result of her unresolved guilt, seeking redemption by continuing to care for patients. Others believe that her dedication to nursing was so profound that it transcended even death, compelling her to continue her vocation as a caretaker in the afterlife. The Jin Menin. The Jin Menin, translating to human-faced dog, is a legend that comes from Japan, which was particularly prominent during the Edo period from 1603 to 1868. These creatures are described as having the body of a dog, but the face of a human. The Jin Menin are known to roam the streets of Japan at night, and according to a legend, encountering a Jin Menin can be a very unsettling experience. These creatures are said to have a willowy voice, and when approached, they often ask to be left alone. While they're not necessarily known to cause physical harm, they sometimes insult those who try to interact with them before quickly running away. Throughout history, the Jin Menin were considered bad omens and were often blamed for various accidents and disasters. Sightings of these creatures were reported frequently enough during the Edo period that people were talking about it like everywhere. The media of the time showed a keen interest in capturing a Jin Menin to show public. There's some stories suggesting that at least one was captured though. Ishizuka Hukaishi, a historian in the 1900s, wrote about the Jin Menin in his book Gaidan Bonbon Shoyo. According to his account, a Jin Menin was born in Old Edo, which is modern Tokyo, in 1810. The news of this unusual birth reached the carnival owner who acquired the creature for a sideshow. The Jin Menin then became a significant attraction for those across Edo, drawing crowds and making the carnival owner wealthy. In modern times though, sightings of the Jin Menin still continue, with many people in Japan claiming to have seen them, often mistaking them for ordinary dogs at first glance. Reports of encounters with these creatures spiked in the late 1980s and early 1990s though. Most sightings occur at night, with witnesses seeing the Jin Menin rummaging through trash or running swiftly through dark alleyways. These reports come from both suburban and rural areas, though some sightings have also been reported in urban settings, like high-rise buildings. One notable sighting in the 1980s involved the Jin Menin spotted digging through trash in a dark alleyway in the Shibuya district, which is one of the busiest areas in Tokyo. Witnesses have described the Jin Menin as moving at incredible speeds, which is up to 60 miles per hour, and sometimes even chasing cars or standing just in dark alleyways. The legend of the Jin Menin has also led to various speculations. Some believe that these creatures might be the result of secret experiments conducted in laboratories, while others suggest they might be Japan's version of the chupacabra. An alternative explanation for the Jin Menin sightings though is the misidentification of Japanese macaques, which can sometimes appear weird in low lights, especially if seen fleeing away. The Sweet Girl of Ancol Bridge. The Sweet Girl of Ancol Bridge is an urban legend that comes from Indonesia, specifically Jakarta. The tale dates all the way back to the 19th century and centers around the ghostly figure that haunts the Ancol Bridge. But yeah, the tale itself of the Sweet Lady comes back from 1817 and involves a young orphan girl named Siti Arya who lived with her mother, Mak Ampar, in a pavilion owned by a wealthy skipper in Batavia. When Siti Arya turned 16, the skipper fell in love with her and wanted her as his concubine. She ended up refusing though and fled, only to encounter a playboy who owned a brothel. Tempted by her beauty, he wanted to add her to his so-called collection. She fled again though, but was eventually caught by two thugs working for the brothel. Siti Arya was then killed near the Dempet Dam by Lake Sunter, and her body was dumped about 400 meters from the Ancol Bridge. It's said that Siti Arya's spirit still roams the area, seeking to inform her mother of her fate. The playboy who owned the brothel met a grim end, being hanged by the Dutch at Fatahillah Park in Jakarta. The story of the mystical Ancol Bridge and its ghost reached popularity in the 1980s though, and became a significant part of the local culture and lore, but yeah, nowadays it's become less popular. Rock Raindrop. The rock raindrop is an urban legend about a weather phenomenon in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where small rocks ranging from pebbles to larger stones descended from the atmosphere onto the city. This event occurred on April 12, 1959, and witnesses reported hearing loud noises resembling explosions as the rocks made contact with various surfaces. The phenomenon lasted for just about 15 minutes before simply ceasing. The event began really suddenly though, with rocks falling from the sky in a manner similar to raindrops. This occurrence left a lot of people wondering, what happened, and it sparked a lot of investigations to understand its origins. During the incident, numerous small rocks, some as tiny as pebbles and others larger, started falling from the sky. Scientists and experts from various fields were then immediately drawn to this event, initiating investigations to determine its cause. Several theories emerged in an attempt to explain the rock raindrop phenomenon. One hypothesis suggested that the rocks were ejected from a volcanic eruption or a nearby geological fault line. However, no evidence of a recent volcanic activity or seismic disturbances was found in the region, which dismissed that theory. Another theory though that was proposed was that the rocks were meteorites or fragments of space debris that entered Earth's atmosphere. Meteorites are typically composed of iron, nickel, or stony materials and can survive their journey through the atmosphere to reach the ground. However, analysis of the recovered rocks didn't match the composition typically associated with meteorites. This led researchers to discard the idea that the rocks were extraterrestrial in origin. Further investigations revealed that the rocks were primarily composed of terrestrial materials like granite and basalt. This finding led to scientists to consider other explanations for the rock raindrop phenomenon. One theory suggests that the strong winds or tornado-like vortices may have lifted rocks from nearby construction sites or natural formations and then carried them into the atmosphere before depositing them back to the ground. While this explanation seems kind of plausible, it doesn't fully account for all aspects of the phenomenon. The sudden onset and cessation of rockfall, as well as the explosive sounds reported by witnesses, remain unexplained still by the wind theory. Some researchers speculate that atmospheric conditions like localized convective currents or unusual wind patterns may have played a role in the formation and behavior of the rock raindrops. These conditions could have created temporary but intense atmospheric disturbance capable of lifting and then dropping the rocks. Sesame seed. The sesame seed, also known as cosmic sesame seed, is an urban legend from South Korea that has been passed down through generations. This legend revolves around a cautionary tale about the potential dangers of using unconventional cosmetic treatments. The story centers around a young girl who was deeply concerned about maintaining her youthful appearance and preventing wrinkles. She was willing to try anything to improve her skin, regardless of how unusual or unverified it might be. One day, she heard from someone that bathing in water infused with sesame seeds would be beneficial for her skin. Eager to try this new method, the girl filled her bathtub with water and added a large amount of sesame seeds, hoping that this natural treatment would enhance her complexion. After spending several hours in the bathtub, the girl still didn't come out of the bathroom. Her mother, who was growing increasingly worried, repeatedly knocked on the door, only to be met with the girl's insistence that she needed just a moment longer. Eventually though, the mother's concern led her to force open the locked bathroom door. What she saw inside was horrifying. The girl's skin was completely covered with sesame seeds that lodged themselves into every small wrinkle and pore on her body. Worse still though, the seeds had started to sprout tiny roots, embedding themselves deeper into her skin. The sight was so shocking that it seemed to have driven the girl to a state of frantic desperation. She was trying her best to remove the seeds with a toothpick, but the task was proving impossible. The girl's mother, seeing her daughter in such a distress, could do nothing but watch in horror. And the story basically ends with the girl losing her sanity, driven mad by the sight and feel of the seeds rooted in her skin. So yeah, the legend of the sesame seed basically serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of blindly following unverified beauty treatments. While some sesame seeds are really known for their health benefits and are commonly used in Korean cuisine, the idea that they could improve skin by being absorbed through a bath is an exaggerated myth. In reality, sesame seeds do contain beneficial properties like a lot of vitamins and such, which can be good for the skin when used in moderation and with proper guidance. And the origins of this legend aren't really clear, but it's believed to have roots in the Joseon dynasty, which dates back to the 1550s. And over time, the tale has basically evolved and been retold. Hong Kong Grandma. The Hong Kong Grandma is another one that comes from South Korea and has been circulating since the late 1980s. This tale revolves around a mysterious elderly lady who is said to appear in public places, particularly in shopping malls and subway stations targeting young children. The legend usually begins with a scenario where a parent or caregiver leaves a child unattended for a brief moment, only to return and find the child missing. In a state of panic, the parents start searching everywhere for the lost child. It is at this moment that the Hong Kong Grandma appears. She's always described as a small, hunched figure wearing a traditional Korean dress, like a hanbok, and carrying a distinctive red bag or basket. The appearance of the Hong Kong Grandma is consistent across various accounts, and when the parent encounters the Hong Kong Grandma, she claims to have seen the child and offers to help them. Desperate for assistance, the parent follows her. The grandma then leads the parent through a series of confusing and disorienting locations, like winding alleyways, crowded markets, and maze-like corridors. The journey becomes increasingly hard and the parent finds themselves completely lost. At the climax of the story, the parent realizes that they've been led astray and turns around to find that the grandma has disappeared, leaving them alone and still worried about the child. There are several variations of the Hong Kong Grandma legend, but most share similar core elements. The grandma always approaches children who are alone or momentarily separated from their parents. She offers to help the child find their parents, but her true intention is to mislead and confuse. Parents who follow the grandma's directions find themselves unable to locate their child or retrace their steps to where they started. The grandma's disappearance is sudden and leaves no trace, and adds to the mystery about the legend. Lisisa. The legend of Lisisa is a tale that comes from Japan and centers around a haunted mirror in a school. According to the story, if you stand in front of the mirror and say "Lisisa, Lisisa, please come out" 3 times, the ghostly figure of Lisisa will appear. The tale begins with the tragic story of Lisisa, a young girl who attended the school many years ago. One fateful day though, a fire broke out in the school and Lisisa was unable to escape. She ended up perishing in the flames, with her life cut short by the disaster. It's said that her spirit became trapped within the mirror, seeking revenge on those who summoned her. Those who have encountered Lisisa describe her as a ghostly figure with charred skin and bandages covering her body. She's said to emit an intense heat and a burning smell, which is reminiscent of the fire that claimed her life. But yeah, the legend is often shared during late night gatherings or school trips, and many variations of the story exist. Some say that Lisisa will drag anyone who summons her into the mirror, while others believe she simply appears to scare those who dare to call her name. And actually, the fear of encountering Lisisa is so pervasive that some schools have even covered or removed mirrors to prevent students from attempting to summon her. Despite the lack of concrete evidence though supporting the existence of Lisisa or any supernatural occurrences related to the legend, it still continues to circulate in a lot of places in Japan. Sandbox Woman. The Sandbox Woman, also known as Sunaba Onna in Japanese, is a figure tied to the northern regions of the island of Kyushu. The Sandbox Woman is described as a woman with long, tangled hair wearing a gray coat. She's often found lurking in children's sandboxes within public parks or playgrounds. According to legend, the Sandbox Woman targets individuals who are alone on a bench in her park under specific circumstances. Her method involves ensnaring those lone individuals, and if certain conditions are met, leading them to a fate where they're buried alive. The story serves as basically a cautionary tale and advises children to be cautious when playing in sandboxes. Some versions of the legend suggest that the spirit of the Sandbox Woman can be appeased by offering gifts or toys in the sandbox as a form of tribute. The act of appeasement is believed to protect the children from her wrath and ensure their safety. The origin of the Sandbox Woman, though, is sort of unclear, with various theories and interpretations circulating among those who recount the tale. Despite the unclear origins, though, the legend has still persisted through generations. It reflects a lot of societal concerns about child safety, parental responsibility, and the potential dangers that may lurk in seemingly innocent places. The legend emphasizes the importance of vigilance and care, especially in the context of parenting and the protection of children. Hituka Station. Hituka Station is an urban legend that originates from the Japanese internet forum 2channel. This legend centers on a mysterious train station that is said to appear only occasionally and is accessible through a specific trail line. According to the legend, Hituka Station is located somewhere in Japan but doesn't appear on any official maps or timetables. It's believed to be situated on a remote and desolate stretch of railway tracks far away from any populated areas. The station itself is described as super old, with an eerie atmosphere surrounding it. The most interesting aspect of Hituka Station, though, is its alleged ability to transport people to different dimensions or time periods. It's believed that those who manage to board the train at this station will find themselves in an alternate reality or a different point in time upon arrival at their destination. And many internet users have shared their supposed experiences of encountering Hituka Station or boarding the train that leads to it. These accounts often include descriptions of the station's appearance, the strange occurrences during the journey, and the unsettling encounters with otherworldly entities. One specific account describes a person boarding a train late at night, only to find themselves the only passenger. As the train moves, the scenery outside the windows begins to change in ways that defy explanation. The usual urban landscape gives way to unfamiliar and strange environments. The traveler then begins to see vast forests that seem endless, fields with strange unidentifiable crops, and even cities that look like they belong to a different era altogether. As the train continues its journey, though, the sense of reality begins to blur. The passenger experiences shifts in time, witnessing scenes from past and the future. In one moment, they're looking at an ancient battlefield, and in the next, they see a futuristic city with towering skyscrapers and advanced technology. Throughout this journey, the traveler feels a growing sense of disorientation and unease. And another account involves a group of friends who decide to explore the legend of Hituka Station. They end up boarding a train that is said to pass through the area where the station might appear. After traveling for what feels like hours and hours, they notice that the train is moving through a dense fog. The usual sounds of the train and the tracks become muffled, and the lights inside the carriage flicker. Suddenly, the train comes to a stop at an unfamiliar station. The group steps out onto the platform and realizes that they're in a place that doesn't exist on any map. The station is old, with cracked platforms and overgrown vegetation. The air becomes heavy with silence, and there's an unsettling feeling of being watched. As the friends explore the station, they notice signs written in a language they can't recognize. The architecture and design of the station seems really foreign. They decide to board the train again and continue their journey, though, hoping to find their way back. However, the train takes them through a series of bizarre and surreal landscapes. They pass through a desert with 3 moons in the sky, a city submerged underwater, and a forest where the trees seem to whisper secrets. Each stop at Hituka Station becomes more disorienting, and the friends start to lose track of time and reality. They encounter other passengers who seem lost and confused too, unable to explain how they ended up on this strange train. Some passengers even claim to have been traveling for days, months, or even years, unable to find their way back to the real world. Despite the growing sense of dread, though, the friends continue their journey, hoping to find a way out. They eventually arrive at a station that looks somewhat familiar. As they step off the train, they feel a sudden jolt and find themselves back in their own time and place. The experience leaves them really uncertain about what they experienced, and they share the story online. Other accounts even describe encounters with supernatural beings and entities during the journey through Hituka Station. Passengers report seeing ghostly figures, hearing whispers in languages they don't understand, and experiencing strange visions. Some believe that the station serves as a portal to the afterlife or other dimensions, where the boundaries between the living and the dead are blurred. Devil's Sickle. The Devil's Sickle is an urban legend originating from Nuremberg, Germany, and has been circulating since 1998. The legend revolves around a mysterious and ghostly figure wielding a sickle, haunting the roads of Nuremberg and terrorizing those who encounter it. According to the legend, the Devil's Sickle is a manifestation of the devil himself and appears to those who dare to travel to the desolate areas of the Black Forest at night. The sickle, which is an agricultural tool with a curved blade, is said to be mixed with dark powers, capable of causing illness or even death to those who see it. The story begins with a young woman named Anna who lived in a small village near Nuremberg. One day, her grandmother fell gravely ill, and none of the local remedies seemed to help. Desperate to save her, Anna turned to an old book of remedies that had been passed down to her family for generations. In the book, she found a recipe for a powerful healing potion that required a rare herb known as the Devil's Sickle. Determined to find this herb and save her grandmother, Anna embarked on the journey into the nearby Black Forest. Legend has it that the devil himself guarded the herb, making it nearly impossible for anyone to obtain it. Undeterred though, Anna ventured deep into the forest, armed with only a small knife and her unwavering determination. After days of searching, Anna finally stumbled upon a small clearing where the Devil's Sickle grew. As she reached out to pluck the herb, a dark figure appeared before her. It was the devil himself, furious at Anna's audacity to steal his precious plant. In exchange for sparing her life, the devil demanded that Anna give up her soul. Faced with an impossible choice, Anna made a cunning bargain. She proposed that if she could brew the healing potion successfully and save her grandmother's life, then the devil would have no claim over her soul. The devil agreed to this deal but warned Anna that if she failed, he would return to claim what was rightfully his. With renewed determination, Anna returned home and brewed the potion using the Devil's Sickle. And miraculously, her grandmother's health improved almost instantly and she made a full recovery. After that, news of Anna's feat spread throughout Nuremberg and the legend of Devil's Sickle was born. It became a cautionary tale and warned people of the dangers of making deals with the devil and the importance of using knowledge and determination to overcome challenges. The urban legend of the Devil's Sickle also includes numerous accounts of sightings and encounters with the ghostly figure. Witnesses report seeing a tall, dark figure holding a sickle, appearing suddenly on lonely roads and causing drivers to lose control of their vehicles. Some say the figure emits an eerie, otherworldly light, and those who see it feel an overwhelming sense of dread and foreboding. And there's also stories of musicians who continue to drive down the road despite seeing the figure, only to fall mysteriously ill shortly afterward. Various methods have been suggested to ward off the figure though, like using metal objects, slashing wood, and hitting the ground, which are believed to make the ghost go away. Some people even use mats and hold them on the border of the area where the figure is seen to protect themselves from its presence. Franz Ferdinand's Mercedes-Benz. Franz Ferdinand's Mercedes-Benz is an urban legend that comes from the folklore of Austria, specifically tied to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand on June 28, 1914 in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. This incident, which played a pivotal role in triggering World War I, is remembered not only for its historical significance, but also for the urban legends that have emerged around it, especially concerning the vehicle in which the Archduke was traveling. The story begins with Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie, who were riding in an open-top Mercedes-Benz when they were assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, a member of the nationalist group known as the Black Hand. According to the legend, the Mercedes-Benz that was involved in the assassination is said to be cursed. The curse purportedly brings misfortune, tragedy, and even death to those who own or come in contact with the car. After the assassination, the car was sold to a series of new owners, each of whom met untimely deaths or suffered significant misfortunes, further fueling the belief in its cursed nature. One of the earliest and most well-known incidents associated with the curse involves General Oskar Poterek, who was the commander of the Austro-Hungarian forces in Bosnia at the time of the assassination. After the assassination, Poterek took possession of the car. It's said that he experienced a series of unfortunate events, culminating in a severe car accident that resulted in significant injuries. This incident is often cited as one of the first signs of the car's supposed cursed nature. The car changed hands multiple times thereafter over the years, and each new owner seemed to encounter similar fates. Another notable incident involves a Swiss racing driver named Fritz Earl, who purchased the car in 1926. During a race, Earl crashed the car and died from his injuries, which added to the growing list of tragic outcomes linked to the vehicle. Stories like these continue to emerge, each one reinforcing the legend of the cursed car. And in another account, a doctor named Dr. Karl Gruber acquired the car and was involved in a serious accident that left him with life-threatening injuries. Despite survival though, the accident had a profound impact on his life, and he reportedly spoke of feeling an inexplicable sense of dread whenever he was near the car. This sense of unease was a common theme among those who owned the vehicle, with many reporting similar feelings of discomfort. The legend also includes a story about a wealthy businessman who purchased the car only to lose his fortune shortly afterward. He was involved in a series of financial misfortunes that led to his bankruptcy, and he eventually sold the car at a significant loss. The new owner, unaware of the car's dark history, soon found himself in a similar predicament, facing a series of business failures and personal tragedies. And another story tells of a young aristocrat who bought the car and was soon after involved in a fatal accident. Witnesses claimed that the car seemed to veer off the road for no apparent reason, leading to a crash that claimed the young man's life. But despite these numerous accounts, there's not really any concrete evidence to support the existence of a curse on Franz Ferdinand's Mercedes-Benz. The stories surrounding the car are primarily based on hearsay, anecdotal evidence, and urban legends rather than verifiable facts. El Sombreron. El Sombreron is one of the most famous legends of Guatemala and is also known in Mexico. This figure is described as a short man dressed in black with a thick and brilliant belt, wearing a large black hat and boots that make a lot of noise when he walks. He's said to enjoy riding horses and braiding their tails and manes. In the absence of horses though, he braids the hair of dogs. El Sombreron also has a particular interest in courting young ladies with long hair and big eyes. He follows them, braids their hair, serenades them with his silver guitar, and places soil in their plates so they're unable to eat or sleep. The legend states that El Sombreron appears at dusk with a group of mules carrying coals, traveling around the city and its neighborhoods. When a woman responds to his advances, he ties the mules to his horse's pole where she lives, starts singing and dancing with his guitar. There's accounts of residents who claim he still wanders at night during full moons. El Sombreron is also considered one of the most important legends of Guatemala and stands alongside other notable ones like La Llorona, Cadejo, and Siguanaba. In one version of the legend specifically, a young lady named Susana was approached by El Sombreron while she was admiring the sky on her balcony. Captivated by her beauty, El Sombreron serenaded her. When her parents discovered her outside late at night, they intervened, and from that point, Susana struggled to sleep or eat due to El Sombreron's haunting presence. Her parents ultimately cut her hair and had it blessed by a priest to free her from the curse. The legend serves as a cultural advisory for teenage girls to uphold societal values by obeying their parents. And it's even been depicted in various forms, including books and films like the 1950 film El Sombreron. New England Faceless People. The New England Faceless People are a group of individuals said to inhabit a specific farmhouse on a backwoods road in a rural community of Monroe, Connecticut. They are described as deformed humans who lack any discernible facial features. Because of a lack of sense of sight, they maneuver around their ramshackle home by touch and by sound, which they detect through small holes where their ears should be. It's said that they live with an elderly caretaker who reportedly chases away snooping kids with a kerosene lantern. Rumors have spread throughout town and the internet about the origins of these people. Some believe their deformities are due to excessive inbreeding, while others have gone so far as to accuse them of being stranded extraterrestrial entities. It's also possible that the legend is purely a tall tale spread by local youths as part of a rite of passage. No actual photographs or video footage of the faceless people exist. Purple Granny. The Purple Granny is a school ghost story and urban legend in Japan that features the ghost of an old woman dressed entirely in purple who is said to haunt school bathrooms. According to the legend, those who encounter the Purple Granny may face dire consequences unless they perform a specific ritual. The figure of the Purple Granny is described as having long hair that reaches her waist, wearing a purple kimono, sporting purple lipstick, and possessing long nails that she uses to scratch her victims. The ritual to make her disappear involves chanting Murasaki, Murasaki, Murasaki 3 times in a row. Failure to do so may result in the Purple Granny removing the liver of her victim. The legend of the Purple Granny also shares similarities with other Japanese urban legends like Hanako-san and Baba at 3 o'clock. The Purple Granny in specific though sort of differs since it's said to appear suddenly without a set time or when summoned through specific actions like knocking on doors. In some versions of the legend, she also emerges from mirrors and toilets or jumps out of holes in bathroom stalls. The origin of the Purple Granny involves a poor girl who was unjustly accused of theft after acquiring a single old kimono. This accusation led to social stigma and her eventual death. The ghost of the girl, now known as the Purple Granny, is believed to seek revenge on those who encounter her in school bathrooms. Amityville House. The Amityville house, located at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, became infamous due to the alleged paranormal events that occurred there. This house gained widespread attention after the publication of the book The Amityville Horror by J. Anson, which was later adapted into a series of films. The story centers around the Lutz family, who moved into the house in 1975 and claimed to have experienced a series of terrifying supernatural occurrences during their brief stay. The events reported by the Lutz family included strange odors, unexplained sounds, and sightings of apparitions. They also claimed that the house was built on a site where mass murder had taken place in 1974 when Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered 6 of his family members. The Lutzes alleged that they were terrorized by malevolent forces during their 28 days in the house, prompting them to flee and share their story with the public. Skeptics, though, have questioned the veracity of the Lutz's claims, suggesting that the whole story was fabricated for financial gain. In the years following the Lutz family's departure, the house has changed hands multiple times. Various owners have made alterations to its appearance in an attempt to deter seekers and protect their privacy. It all began with the tragic events of November 13, 1974. On that night, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed 6 members of his family while they slept. This horrific crime shocked the community and became a national news story. DeFeo was convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison. The house where the murders took place then quickly became notorious. In December 1975, just a year after the DeFeo murders, George and Kathy Lutz purchased the house at a significantly reduced price. The couple moved in with their 2 children, hoping to start a new life. However, according to their account, their time in the house was anything but peaceful. The Lutzes claimed to have experienced a series of disturbing events that began almost immediately after they moved in. George Lutz reported waking up every night at 3:15 a.m., the approximate time of the DeFeo murders. The family also described strange odors, cold spots, and unexplained noises. They claimed to have seen green slime oozing from the walls and keyholes, and they reported sightings of a demonic pig-like creature with glowing red eyes. The Lutzes also described being physically attacked by unseen forces. One of the most infamous incidents, though, involved a room in the house that the Lutzes refer to as the Red Room. According to them, this small hidden room in the basement was not included in the blueprints of the house. They claimed that the room had a powerful and malevolent presence that even their dog refused to enter. The family also recounted a night when Kathy Lutz levitated off her bed, and another night when George saw her transform into an old woman. These events culminated in the family fleeing the house just after 28 days, leaving all of their possessions behind. After they left, they collaborated with author J. Anson to write the Amityville Horror, which was published in 1977. The book became a bestseller and was later adapted into a successful film in 1979. The story captivated the public and cemented the house's reputation as one of the most haunted places in America. However, the Lisa's account has been met with a lot of skepticism. Critics have pointed out inconsistencies in their stories and questioned their motives. Some have suggested that the entire tale was a hoax designed to profit from the public's fascination with the supernatural. The lawyer who represented Ronald DeFeo Jr. even claimed that he, along with George and Kathy Lutz, fabricated the story over a bottle of wine. Despite these doubts though, the legend of the house still endures. Moody's Light. The legend of Moody's Light, also known as the Ghost Light of Indiana, originates from a desolate road between Rensselaer and Francisville. This tale begins with a tragic event involving a farmer named Moody, who lived with his wife and 2 daughters in a farmhouse off the road. One evening, Moody returned home to a horrifying scene. His family had been found brutally murdered, with their bodies mutilated and stabbed multiple times. Despite investigation by the authorities, no evidence or clues were found to identify the perpetrator. The gruesome nature of the crime left Moody devastated. Over time, his grief consumed him, leading to a significant decline in his mental health and the overall condition of his farm. Eventually, Moody was found hanging from a tree on his property, having taken his own life in despair. Following Moody's tragic end, local farmers began reporting sightings of a mysterious light floating through the cornfields near his farm. Described as lantern-like, this light was believed to be the ghost of Moody eternally searching for his family's killer. And the legend grew more as more people claimed to witness the unexplained phenomenon. One notable account from April 11, 2003 involves a group of visitors who decide to investigate Moody's Road. On that night, the weather was clear and breezy, with temperatures around 50 degrees. The group started their exploration at the intersection of Meridian and Division, flashing their car lights 3 times before driving 1.5 miles to the end of Meridian. Upon turning around, they parked near a tree stump, flashed their lights 3 more times, and observed the northern horizon. The group then saw an orangish light which they initially mistook for a streetlight. However, the light's behavior was unusual. It would appear and disappear, changing from orange to red and varying in size. Using binoculars, they observed the light sometimes split into multiple lights before merging back into one. Despite various explanations like car lights from Highway 49 or swamp gas, the group remained uncertain about the light's true nature. Their experience ended with them taking the best possible photograph of the light, though they were no closer to understanding its origin. Theories about the cause of Moody's light range from ghostly apparitions to natural explanations. Some suggest that the light is merely a reflection of car headlights from nearby highways, while others propose that it could be the result of swamp gas or other natural phenomena. Despite these theories though, the mystery of Moody's light still persists. Mud Mermaids. Mud mermaids are creatures believed to inhabit the muddy banks of the Ohio River during the early 19th and 20th centuries. These mermaid-like beings were first reported in an 1839 Pennsylvania newspaper, where they were described as being about 4 feet tall and covered in a light coat of chestnut-colored hair. Their skin was noted to have a yellowish hue, and they possessed webbed feet at the ends of their 4 limbs. Despite variations in sightings though, the creatures were consistently described as having vaguely humanoid and amphibious features, allowing them to move both on land and in water with remarkable speed. It's said that when they were pursued, they would let out screeches and yelps. The diet of mud mermaids is presumed to mainly consist of frogs and fish, which aligns with their sharp teeth and claws. Historical accounts suggest that these creatures were easily startled and generally reclusive, showing no particular interest in interacting with people. They would often flee from any perceived threat, disappearing into the water with impressive agility. One notable sighting of a mud mermaid involved a fisherman who claimed to have seen one of these creatures while out on the river. He described it as initially appearing to be a large fish or amphibian, but as it drew closer, he noticed its more human-like characteristics. The creature reportedly stared at him with what he described as intelligent eyes before diving back into the depths of the river. This account, among others, led to various explorations and attempts to capture or further document these beings. Throughout the 19th century, sightings of mud mermaids continued sporadically. In the 1850s, another notable encounter involved a group of young travelers who camped near the riverbank. They reported hearing strange yelps during the night and found odd, webbed footprints around their campsite the next morning. This incident further fueled local legends, and tales of mud mermaids became part of the regional folklore. People living near the river would sometimes leave offerings of fish and frogs by the water's edge, hoping to appease these mysterious inhabitants and avoid any potential misfortune. But in the early 20th century, reports of mud mermaids began to decline. Some attributed this to the increasing industrialization and pollution of the Ohio River, which might have driven these creatures to remote areas. However, the legend still persisted and was kept alive by the occasional report from fishermen or river travelers who claimed to have seen strange humanoid figures slipping into the water. Dulin, Wisconsin. In the heart of Wisconsin, there was once a small town known as Dulin. But something weird happened in the 1990s, being that Dulin disappeared. The town, along with its buildings and residents, seemed to vanish without a trace, leaving behind no evidence of its existence. Ordinarily, towns keep a lot of records of public officials, property transactions, and demographic data, all archived in state records. Accessing such information is usually straightforward and doesn't require extensive legal procedures. However, Dulin presents a unique mystery. Despite the expectation that records should be readily available, there are no official documents or maps that reference Dulin, Wisconsin. This absence extends to state archives, which should typically include census data and other documentation of every town's existence. What makes Dulin particularly fascinating, though, is the number of people who claim to remember it. These individuals recount memories of visiting the town, having relatives who lived there, and even possessing souvenirs from Dulin. The question that arises then is, how could an entire town and its inhabitants simply vanish? Various theories have been proposed to explain the disappearance, though. One theory suggests that an earthquake might have caused a massive sinkhole, swallowing the town whole. However, Wisconsin is not known for a lot of seismic activity, and there's no fault lines running through the state that could produce such an event. Minor earthquakes have occurred though, but none have been powerful enough to destroy a whole town. The notion that a sinkhole could consume an entire town without leaving any debris is also highly improbable. Another theory suggests that Dulin was destroyed by damming. Wisconsin does have a history of dam construction, with over 900 dams built over the years. Some towns have indeed been flooded and destroyed by dam failures. However, even in these cases, there are always remnants, being foundations, debris, and records of the town before they were submerged. The idea that a flood could obliterate all traces of Dulin and remove every piece of debris defies common sense. A more speculative theory, though, involves a military science experiment gone wrong, leading to the town's obliteration. This explanation suggests that some form of test or accident erased Dulin. However, even catastrophic events leave evidence. For instance, the nuclear disaster at Chernobyl left behind an abandoned city with lingering radioactivity. Any military experiment would similarly leave behind debris and physical evidence. Some suggest that Dulin was a temporary military town that ceased to exist after the conclusion of an operation. While there are many abandoned military bases and complexes in the United States, these locations still have visible remains. An entire military town disappearing without a trace doesn't align with known historical patterns. And there's also a theory that Dulin's residents simply moved away due to economic decline, a scenario that has led to the creation of many ghost towns across the United States. However, even ghost towns still have structures and remnants of their existence. The complete absence of any physical evidence from Dulin makes this theory implausible. But a more outlandish suggestion is that Dulin became invisible, possibly through extraterrestrial intervention. While this theory stretches the imagination, it doesn't align with any documented evidence or credible scientific explanation. Alien abductions of entire towns remain firmly in the realm of science fiction. The most likely explanation, though, is that Dulin is a hoax. There is no mentions of Dulin or its sudden disappearance in any records before 2015. The internet has a lot of urban legends and eerie stories, which are often accompanied by doctored photos and false records. Souvenirs from Dulin can also be purchased online, which adds to the fictional narrative. Fishman. The legend of the Fishman of Leganes, which is an entity from the mythology of Cantabria in northern Spain, is a story that mixes human curiosity with the mysterious allure of the sea. This tale, which has been passed down through generations, revolves around a young man named Francisco de la Vega Quezar, who lived in the small village of Leganes. In the mid-17th century, following the death of his father, Francisco's mother decided to send him to Bilbao to learn the trade of carpentry. This decision was made out of necessity as the family was struggling to make ends meet. In 1674, during the festivities of St. John's Day Eve, Francisco and some other friends decided to swim in the Bilbao estuary. Although Francisco was a competent swimmer, the strong currents pulled him away from the shore, and he was last seen disappearing into the sea. His friends and family presumed he had drowned, and his loss was mourned in Leganes. However, the story took a strange turn 5 years later in 1679 when Fishman in the Bay of Cadiz, located in southern Spain, reported an encounter with a peculiar creature. This being, which had been entangled in their fishing nets, struggled fiercely to free itself. Although the fishermen initially failed to capture it, they persisted and eventually succeeded by luring it with loaves of bread. When they brought the creature on board, they were astonished to find that it resembled a human. The being had white skin, thin red hair, and strips of scales running down its throat, stomach, and spine. It also appeared to have gills around its neck. The fishermen, bewildered by their catch, took the creature to the nearby convent of St. Francis. There, the entity was subjected to an exorcism and questioned in various languages, but it remained unresponsive. After several days, the creature uttered a single word, Leganes. This word meant nothing to the people of Cadiz until a sailor from northern Spain recognized it as the name of a village near his hometown. This information prompted the Bishop of Cadiz to send a detailed description of the creature to Santander, a city in Leganes. Upon receiving the description, the residents of Leganes were reminded of the tragic drowning of Francisco de la Vega. Speculating that the creature might be Francisco, the bishop allowed a friar to escort it to Leganes. Remarkably, upon nearing the village, the creature seemed to recognize its surroundings and led the friar directly to the home of Maria del Cácer, Francisco's mother. Maria and the villagers believed that the creature was indeed Francisco. Francisco, now the so-called Fishman, lived a peculiar life back in his village. He walked barefoot and often preferred to be nude unless given clothes. He rarely spoke, only muttering occasional words like tobacco, bread, or wine, without any apparent desire for these items. His behavior was odd yet benign, being he performed simple tasks when asked but showed no enthusiasm. But after 9 years of this unusual existence, Francisco returned to the sea and vanished once more, never to be seen again. Benito Jeronimo Fijo, an Enlightenment writer, later examined the story and claimed its authenticity. Fijo's investigation involved collecting testimonies and documents from those who had witnessed or heard about the Fishman. He believed the accounts to be credible, given the detailed and consistent reports from various reputable sources. Despite Fijo's reputation for debunking superstitions and frauds, he supported the story, which lent it a degree of legitimacy. However, skepticism about the legend still persists. Similar tales of fishmen existed in European folklore, and the story's elements could have been influenced by earlier myths. Some modern scholars like Gregorio Maranon have suggested alternative explanations. Maranon proposed that Francisco might have suffered from medical conditions such as cretinism, which could explain his appearance and behavior. He hypothesized that Francisco could have wandered from Bilbao to Cadiz, where his strange luck and actions led to the myth of the Fishman. So that ends the video. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you have some feedback, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.